Sally Meyerhoff was killed Tuesday when she was hit by a car while riding her bike in her hometown of Maricopa.
I'm Adam Fuller, and I'm a friend of Chris Volpe. I'd known Chris for about a year before the accident happened, but in pretty much the 2 months before the accident, I started hanging out with him a lot more. We started to go out on the weekends and things with a group of our friends. We were kind of becoming pretty close, and yeah, we were having a really good time. He was a great guy, lots of fun, and it kind of felt like the more that I hung out with him, the more I got to know him. I don't know, the more fun we had, and he was just kind of becoming, you know, one of those new friends in your group that, you know, just kind of a fixture of kind of your group of friends that you hang out with. For me, we had a really good time, and then he got in a tragic accident, and we lost him. He surprised you. He was really funny, and I didn't realize how generous of a guy he was until kind of he was gone. I kind of feel that our relationship was cut really short, and I'm just happy that, you know, I got to know him as much as I did. I wish I got to know him better. It was great hanging out with him and great knowing him, and kind of the more I find out about him after he's gone, the more I wish he was here. The more you realize how great of a guy he was.
Jose Rincon was just, you know, a great, vivacious 14-year-old boy. What he was doing was such a childlike thing to do. He was riding just on the side of the road, you know, Broadway, which has a nice side where you can ride, you know, out of traffic's way. And, you know, he was just riding home, I believe, with a friend, and it was just so sudden. And, you know, I mean, we've all, as 14-year-olds, just ridden our bikes to and from friends' houses and stuff. So it was just a particularly egregious example of, you know, somebody just riding along on a road. And I mean, he was killed by a very drunk driver, and it was just really, really sad. And that just spurred me to think about maybe just doing something. My name is Ari Shapiro. I did the first ghost bike in Tucson. What drove me to get involved was first and foremost being very moved by the story of what happened to Jose. Cycling is a huge part of my life, and I am particularly one of these cyclists that spends a lot of time on public roads because I'm a big commuter. And I lived in San Francisco for 10 years before I moved to Tucson, and I was really involved in cycling there as well. And I had known about the ghost bike movement that was taking place in other cities across America, but it was really taking foot in cities like Portland and San Francisco and New York. I thought the movement that was taking place in other cities was really compelling. You know, I thought that Ghost Bikes made a really appropriate memorial to somebody, and at the same time they were artistic. I think it's interesting, you know, particularly in southern Arizona. I had never seen this before until I moved here, but there's a lot of roadside memorials to people that get killed in cars. You know, you see them along the highway and stuff like that. And, you know, in a sense, Ghost Bikes are almost an extension of that as well. I think it's just, you know, an incredible tribute to the viral and guerrilla aspects of what people can do these days. It's just a movement that started with one individual in St. Louis and just spread virally. I mean, now if you go to ghostbikes.org and look at all the places that there are ghost bikes, I mean, it's simply phenomenal how fast the movement has spread and how wide across the globe it's spread. It really obviously has touched a nerve. I do think that ghost bikes create a very stark reaction in people, and it is a little bit of a different atmosphere, because whereas some roadside memorials, you know, are just flowers, and ghost bikes are kind of making a statement in a way. You know, obviously even the name ghost bike is provoking and makes you think and immediately conveys death, you know, because you're using the word ghost. And it's interesting that, you know, we see bikes all the time, right? And yet when you just see one completely painted white, it's like, it does provoke a strong reaction. I did not know the Rincon family prior. You know, I just heard the name Jose Rincon. I did not recognize it, or it didn't mean anything. So I did the first installation anonymously, just for him as an anonymous tribute. I had no intention of making a connection with his family or so forth. I didn't know, you know, how they would respond to the ghost bike. So I went ahead and did that, and then my anonymous cover was eventually blown. Eventually I told them that I was the one that did that one for Jose, and they asked, you know, if they could put that in the article that they were writing. And I agreed, and it was a big front page article. And I was in Seattle, and I got a call from Jose's father that he said, you know, that was really nice of you to have done that. It has meant a lot to us over the last few months. We just had a really poignant conversation. He seemed very gracious and grateful that I had done it, and as a tribute to his son, who obviously, you know, was a great kid, and well loved by his parents and a lot of people. It took on a much larger meaning than I ever thought it would. The message purpose of ghost bikes, as I see it, and you know, I just want to qualify that everyone that does one, you know, may have their own reasons. And just so you know, this is a very unorganized movement in the sense that there's no organization that does ghost bikes. If they just basically spontaneously come to be if somebody decides they want to do one for somebody. I think that the message and purpose varies, you know, for different individuals that are doing them, but I certainly think there's a common thread that runs through all the ghost bikes, which is, you know, first and foremost, they are silent memorials to the victim. And I think that most people that do it, that's their main reason for doing them. There's that artistic element as well, that you're kind of creating a little bit of urban art, so to say. But certainly there's also that kind of warning, or alert, look out for cyclists kind of thing, because they do make people think, drivers, or anyone on the roads. And so anytime you can get somebody to think about bikes on the road, perhaps you're helping prevent an accident down the road.
It's really a symbol, and I think a symbol resonates differently for every person. When I drive by the bike, Chris's bike, it hits me in a different way that it's going to hit you, and it's going to hit a lot of other people, depending on how much they know about Chris and how much they know about the bike. For me, that represents, a lot of my friend right there in the corner. Maybe somebody who didn't know him drives by and looks over and sees that memorial. It makes them stop and think about maybe something that happened to them or a family member. Now, it kind of feels like those signs you see along the freeway too, the crosses, you always kind of, it makes you think like what's behind that cross, or what's behind that photo. In this case, I kind of know what's behind it, and it means a lot that that ghost bike is there and that it stays there. Like I said, it means a lot to the community. It's kind of just a symbol and a reminder of, I guess it kind of, it's not sobering, but it puts everything kind of in perspective. If you're rushing on your way to some place, or upset about something at school or at work, you kind of see these things, and they're kind of a reminder that, that chill out and take your time, and they're more important things in life. So for me, it makes me think about my brother. And if I drive by it and I think, I haven't talked to my brother in a while, I send him an email, or if I can give him a call or something like that. But even just thinking about it, that's one of the things that it does for me. And if you know the person, obviously it's going to make you think about that person every time you see it. I don't know exactly how the ghost bike came about, or how it was made, but I know that there's the bike community in Tempe really rallied around Chris, and came in together for all his family and friends. I think it's great, just the community aspect of it, and how they really care. It seems like they really care for each other. Like I said, that a lot of them, I don't think they even had ever met Volpe, but to show that kind of support for him really says a lot about that community. When the ghost bike was made, there was a ceremony to kind of put it in the ground. The ghost bike ceremony happened during the day, and I know that I was told that a lot of people who didn't even know Chris were there, and came to support him and all his friends at that time. So it said a lot to me about Chris, first of all, but a lot about the bicycle community in Tempe, that they would kind of go through all this effort and show up to take the time out and to go and do this for somebody who they may have never even met. From what I saw that day, it left a lasting impression. I do know what I saw in kind of the days since it happened. I saw kind of the community come together around this really sad incident, and around this really great guy. One of the things that really stuck out for me after this all happened was how much I started learning about Chris after he was gone, and how sad it is that sometimes it takes death or a tragic event like this to show you these sides, or to bring attention to such a great life. and it made me feel really sad that, you know, that this is the way I was going to meet like his family or his parents or all of his friends or a lot of his friends, or to see these different sides of him. You know, usually maybe if he was going to get married or if he was going to, you know, these big events in your life, you expect to be part of those with your friends, and you really start to get to know the whole picture of him. And it was just really sad for me to have to learn about those sides of him and see that full picture because he had died. That was really, really tough. It grabs your attention, I think. It really stops you, and I would imagine it kind of makes a lot of people stop as well and you know, wonder what it means. Well, I just hope it's a reminder that, well, like I said, I hope that it puts things into perspective for people. I know when I drive by things like that, it makes you think about, you know, oh, you know, this could be somebody's son, this could be somebody's wife. It really puts things in, even for a split second, it makes you kind of realize where things stand. But I just, you know, I hope people look at it and that it makes them think, you know, think twice about what they're doing. If they're upset about something, I hope it makes them kind of realize that it's really not that big of a deal. I would think that if you see that bike there, I would think that, you know, it makes you think, you know, about bike safety and to just be careful.
As far as, you know, preventing bicycle car accidents on the road, it's really no different than preventing car-to-car accidents on the road or motorcycle-to-car accidents. You know, I think first and foremost it comes down to an overall awareness and respect for everyone using the roads, you know, and certainly the more drivers that acknowledge and respect bicycles as a viable form of transportation on the roads, you know, that will certainly help.
I hope it makes people, you know, think about what they're doing. People run red lights all the time. People drive like jerks all the time. People do a lot of stuff that you get caught in the moment, and, you know, it's probably not the way you normally do things, and it happens.
It just comes down to using the roads with a lot of awareness, you know, and it's true. There's a lot of cyclists that do really boneheaded things like text and listen to really loud music while they're riding, and I don't condone that at all. When I ride my bike, I don't listen to an iPod, I don't talk on my phone. I'm very aware. As a matter of fact, I feel like my ears are my first line of defense, you know, if I can hear a car coming too close or what have you. And, you know, from the vehicle driver's perspective, it's the same thing, you know, just don't drive drunk, don't text. I mean, it's all the things, you know, we just hear over and over again, but really that's the only thing that's ever going to prevent accidents. That, and the only other thing I would add is just cities taking the lead on making bicycling safer by really good bike lanes. And, you know, Portland, Oregon takes the lead on that, you know, with really striping out areas where no cars are allowed and making it very obvious that this is a bike lane and it's a protected zone. Whether ghost bikes are going to help, you know, governments and cities or light a fire under them to make biking safer, I don't know. I mean, certainly it'd be nice to think that a little movement like this could have a ripple effect along those lines, but anything that increases the visibility and respectability of bikes certainly can't hurt the cause.
The city recognizes that the ghost bikes have been placed in the community, and that this has happened internationally as a way to recognize fallen cyclists. It is important for that community to recognize that and to kind of mark that as something to create visibility and awareness for the rest of people, you know, around the community and driving those streets. So the city has been accommodating in letting these emerge. There's 2 in our community. They are both on private property, and I know that the folks that put them in have gotten the permission of the adjacent owners to allow those to be placed there. Tempe's a college town. Because of that, it's also very compact. The downtown is adjacent to the campus. It has some of the highest density neighborhoods and census tracts in the state. Because of that, because of all those factors, there's a high volume of pedestrians, transit users, bicyclists. Because of that, it's important to respond to those users in the community with a good system, with all options for driving, for one, but then, of course, a good street system that accommodates bicyclists, accommodates pedestrians, accommodates transit users. We're trying to build a system that has street trees and shade and good bike lanes and accessible, safe sidewalks. Specific bike ped projects that the city's working on right now, I would say we continue to expand our pathway system along the canals and along the lake downtown. We're also doing about a mile of street recharacterization every couple years on streets that have high bike ped volume, like College Avenue or Alameda or 5th Street. Taking those streets and trying to reshape them to be more accommodating for bicyclists and pedestrians, make them safer. Safety for bicyclists is important to the city, and we have several pieces of public information that we put out throughout the year and that we make available to places like bike shops. The bike map itself has a lot of rules of the road and safety information, but then we also have some public events like Tour de Tempe and Bike to Work Day that are opportunities for people to join larger crowds to learn rules of the road and feel safe about getting from one point to another in the community on their bike. I know that 2010 there was 2 fatalities, maybe 3 in Tempe, which was a particularly bad year. You obviously don't want to have any, and the city pays attention to where this happens and where all of our accidents happen. And we look at those areas to see if there's improvements that need to be made because of that accident. But with an increase in ridership, with an increase in the number of people that are biking, comes the greater likelihood that you may have, more fatalities because there's just more people on their bikes. Because bicyclists and pedestrians and transit users, alternative mode users are so important to the community, in the last 14 years, the city has shifted. 15 years ago, approximately 15 years ago, we had about 90% of our budget went to roadway improvements, which are really road widenings and traffic signals, those kinds of things that benefit motorists. And the shift in those 15 years has been to the point where now we have about 90% of our transportation budget going towards, or the majority of our budget going towards, improvements for alternative modes like bike paths and wider sidewalks and shady streets. Yeah, I would say that the city takes very seriously the role of making our street system safer and more accommodating for all kinds of users, especially bicyclists and pedestrians. But I think there is a certain amount of personal responsibility that every rider and every walker, every motorist has in being a good user of the system, driving safe and riding safe and obeying the rules of the road.
I think it's great that there are people out there doing this and taking and trying to spread that message of safety and bicycle awareness. I think that's awesome. hope it gets, when people see these ghost bikes, that it makes them kind of pause and think about what they're doing and think, is what I'm doing really necessary to, does it really matter?